In class 8, our science teacher worked with us on a biogas experiment. We were all asked to get vegetable peels from our kitchens and put them in a tiny tank fixed in a science lab. Next day, a class of 35 students excitedly emptied our paper bags in the tank, all the while wondering, can we really make gas from food waste? After 3 weeks, what we saw left us awestruck. The tiny black tank was powering the Bunsen burner in the science lab. That was the first I ever heard of biogas and saw it in action. I was reminded of this when I was traveling to Pune recently to visit the biodigester manufacturing plant run by Systema Bio. Incidentally, the month of August marks World Biofuel Day. So we at TMB decided to talk about biogas and trace its journey, which after 5 decades of struggle has begun to see a handsome growth. Today we have startups setting up biogas plants. We have conglomerates like Reliance Industries and Adani Group betting thousands of crores on this segment and the government pushing its use to save on our energy bill. So what has changed now that has made biogas attractive? Can biogas challenge LPG and natural gas to secure India's energy needs? Can it really become the fuel of the future? And can you and I gain from this revolution of sorts? For answers, we talk to firms who are changing things on the ground. Systema Bio, which has brought in new biodigester technology.
This biodigester not only generates energy, it also generates a very good organic fertilizer, which is used by the farmers to reduce the chemical fertilizer consumption in the agriculture.
Avarice Environment Technologies, which is treating waste at source.
What our plant does is treats your waste at the source and also converts the waste into energy. What we do is we pipe it back to the kitchen and thereby there is a reduction in the usage of LPG.
And the policy push, which is coming from the government.
If we increase the compressed biogas share, then we can reduce the annual import bill by $25 billion by the end of 2030.
It's Thursday, 17th of August. From the Economic Times, I'm Kalpana Pathak, and this is the Morning Brief. India is the pioneer of biogas, and a journey began in 1897 when a British civil engineer, Charles James, worked on the drainage of homeless leper asylum in Matunga, Bombay. James devised methods to purify effluent which was sent into septic tanks. Gas from these septic tanks helped the lepers regenerate 6 acres of land with rotating crops of vegetables and fruits and grains. Buoyed by this success, biogas took off on a small scale. From the 1940s, various schemes and initiatives were launched by the government to push adoption of this fuel. It was met with success too, because these plants provide cheaper and cleaner fuel, which not only allowed households to save money on their LPG bills, but also improved the health of women at home who stopped burning firewood. Its success gained so much ground that families began pledging not to marry their daughters in villages which had no biogas plants. But there were challenges too. Right from the maintenance of the facility to availability of feedstock, which led to the plants losing popularity until a few years ago. And then in 2018, the government launched the Satat scheme, or the Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation, to boost the availability of biogas. Satat expects an investment of 2 lakh crore rupees for setting up 5,000 compressed biogas plants by 2024. This got the big boys of the energy space excited. And Reliance Industries, Adani Group, IOCL, BPCL and HPCL laid down plans for big investments and capacities. But since the opportunity is fairly large, startups entered the fray too, including some international ones. Systema Bio is one such player. Headquartered in Mexico, it was registered in India in 2018 and since then has been working with dairy farmers. But it was only this June that the company inaugurated its first biodigester manufacturing plant in Pune. TMB traveled to Systema's manufacturing facility and also to suburban Pune to speak to farmers who are users of Systema's technology. But before we hear from the users, let's catch up with the makers. Piyush Sohani of Systema Bio explains how biogas is getting fired up again.
So, Systema Bio is a social enterprise which works in the area of clean energy and agriculture. We manufacture biogas digesters for dairy farmers. So, essentially, these products, these biodigesters, what they do is they convert organic manure generated at the farms into clean energy. And this clean energy is utilized by the farmers in form of biogas. And if there is excess biogas, then the farmers also generate electricity and run their all farm equipment. This biodigester not only generates energy, it also generates a very good organic fertilizer, which is used by the farmers to reduce the chemical fertilizer consumption in the agriculture. So our goal is that we want to reduce 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions by installing these biodigesters to millions of farmers across the world.
Systema has tied up with the NDDB, or the National Dairy Development Board, which is the biggest milk cooperative body in India. It has 17 million dairy farmers associated with it. Through NDDB, Systema reaches out to dairy cooperatives who in turn promote biodigesters within their farmer members. My colleagues Vinay Joshi and Rajas Naik visited the dairy farmers at Katraj near Pune to see how these biogas plants are changing the lives of the farmers.
We used to use 2 LPG cylinders a month. Now, because of biogas, we no longer have to go through the trouble of procuring the cylinders. Before, we were spending around 40 to 50,000 rupees on manure. But after I installed biogas plant, we are saving around 20,000 rupees a month.
We were using around 2 LPG cylinders every month. Now, after installing the biogas plant, we are saving around 2,000 rupees and are using the saved money for our children's education and other household expenses.
Building 4 to 5 biogas plants in our village benefited our people. And as they started knowing more about it, many more farmers opted to use biogas too. There are 2 types of biogas plants we can install. One costs around 42,000 and the other costs around 50,000.
We used to pay 1,100 to 1,200 for a tank of LPG cylinder every month. Now it is different. We don't have to pay the amount anymore. We now use biogas for cooking for our family of 5 people.
We used to end up paying 1 lakh for manure for growing potatoes, but now we are fully using the bio slurry that comes out of the biogas plant.
Because of biogas plant, our food is being cooked much faster now. Earlier we cooked food on firewood, which was harmful for our health.
We don't have to worry about spending on anything. The manure that we use for plants are now being used in the biogas plant.
The process is much easier now. We already have cows. We sell the excess manure and we sell the milk, which is already making us a profit. And the biogas plant is only adding to it.
Incidentally, India is the biggest market for Systema Bio, which is also present in Kenya and Mexico. Piyush, what made Systema Bio choose India to set up operations?
The reason is because India has the biggest opportunity. There are millions of farmers who are in need of this kind of technology. India has the biggest potential to grow. India contributes to 80% of units distributed or sold all around the world from Systema Bio. India has also the biggest manufacturing capability. So we can manufacture 1 lakh units per year.
So what's your current production?
So today, every month, producing and installing more than 5,000 biodigesters in India alone. And around the world, this number is relatively higher. Systema Bio in India, it took us 5 years to number of 50,000 user base. In 1 year alone, we are aiming to reach another 40,000. So roughly 95,000 total user base we will have by the end of financial year. So that's the kind of growth that we have experienced. And then in the next 5 years, I would say that what we are projecting is that every year we will have at least 50% growth in terms of revenue, also in terms of number of units sold. And by 2030, our goal is to have a total user base of 10 lakhs.
What makes you so bullish on the Indian market?
So there are two main reasons. The first is, of course, the potential. India has the biggest potential in terms of number of farmers. So we have 70 million dairy farmers who have resource. So they can generate biogas. And we know that the conventional energy cost, either it is LPG or it is diesel or any other fuel, which is required by the farmers to run their farm for their daily energy needs, that will continue to increase. The cost of conventional energy increase. So overall, the proposition for our technology will continue to improve. Our cost will not increase as much as LPG cost will increase. Okay, so this is about the potential. The second reason that I see is also the climate change movement. Overall, this will enable more and more organizations, more and more governments, even I will say citizens, to take action towards all the approaches which improves the climate.
So, Piyush, how much does your biodigester cost, and is it affordable for small farmers?
So, to give you an example, the smallest product that we have is called a Systema 6, which capacity is about 2 cubic meter biogas per day. So, it produces about 1.5 cylinders of LPG per month. That's the kind of energy it provides. And we know from various data that average family consumes about 1 to 1.5 cylinder of gas, LPG gas per month. So it sufficiently completes all the energy needs. Now, this 2 cubic meter system, which is Systema 6, costs about 35,000 rupees. It differs a little bit based on the location, but on an average, it will cost about that. Now, every farmer who installs, it starts giving savings in terms of LPG cylinder cost every month. But we know that most of the farmers in India still cannot afford this kind of technology. So what we're trying to do is that we are trying to use a different financing mechanism, which is reducing front cost of the technology.
What are the financing mechanisms?
I'll give two examples. The first example is under Government of India and specifically Ministry of Renewable Energy, MNRE, has launched this scheme where if any farmer wants a biogas system, farmers will get 15,000 rupees subsidy. And our technology is approved for that. So farmers receive 15,000 rupees subsidy if they take our product. So thereby it reduces the upfront cost. Another example is that today in the world, climate financing is increasing. What it means is that climate change is a very big challenge. And to mitigate that, organizations around the world are investing in technologies which improves the climate, which improves the environment. If a farmer or if any family who is using biogas is not using LPG, they are not using firewood, that means they are saving the harmful emissions which will release. So every small biodigester saves about 10 tons of CO2 every year. So this generates 10 tons of carbon credit per year. And these carbon credits, what we try to do is we try to provide to the organizations who have higher emissions and they want to reduce the emissions. So this financing mechanism helps the farmers reduce their upfront cost. So it differs a little bit, but we are able to provide between 60 to 80% sort of price reduction to farmers by transferring these carbon credits and providing these carbon credits to organizations who can support the financing of these biodigesters. So that way we are making biodigesters affordable.
What is so unique about your digester that you see this as a success, which probably we've not been able to achieve in the last so many decades?
Actually, if you look at the data, in the last 5 decades or so, the government has helped install 5 million biodigesters in India. So that's already a very big number. But I will say why it has not happened more. It's because I think there was not a lot of private companies' participation in the overall movement. It was more of training of the local masons, local contractor. So there was not a lot of technology innovation that has happened in the sector. So what we as a Systema Bio are trying to tackle the challenge is that how can we innovate on the technology? So to give an example, that the previous technologies which were there in biogas sector were made with civil construction. And it used to take 2 weeks of time to construct. It was difficult to monitor the quality. It was too expensive. So all of these things were there. When we innovated the technology, we said now the technology can be manufactured in factory so that the quality can be assured. It can be installed within 1 day. It is flexible and portable. So it can be folded and sent to any rural areas across India.
In 2016, the government drafted solid waste management rules which laid emphasis on 100% segregation, collection, transportation, and processing of wet waste through composting. This was the genesis of Chug, a portable food waste treatment system promoted by Avris Environment Technologies. Avris is the brainchild of 4 friends, Ravi Iyengar, Satish Patel, Shrikant Sitaraman, and Bharat V. We spoke to Bharat, who explained to us why they were concerned about food waste rotting in the landfills and producing methane gas, which is worse than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas.
India statistics says out of all the waste, 40 to 50% contributes to food waste. So if there's a waste in a hotel, say for example 100 kgs, 40 to 50 kgs constitutes food waste. See, handling food waste is very deep issue. So all these hoteliers, right now what they're doing is they're having a cold storage to store the food waste, because if the collectors don't come and collect in a day, it perishes, it biodegrades, and it smells. There is a huge cost involved in storing the waste. Second of all, waste collector is collecting money to dispose the waste. The disposal is a serious issue, what we saw. So that is when we all came together, all our partners, Mr. Ravi Iyengar, Mr. Shrikant, and myself. We are all into different businesses. So we came together, and that is when we came up with this idea. And there are a couple of scientists on board, Mr. Satish Patel, who's the key person who have developed this product called Chug.
So what does your plant do, and who are your clients?
Of course, we have installed plants for Greater Chennai Corporation, and we have installed plants for Indian Army back in Chennai, and many other installations we have done. We have installed plant for factories in Coimbatore, Erode, Rajasthan. Our recent installation is in Andaman and Andaman region, where this food waste disposal is a huge issue. We are slowly expanding across India, appointing partners state-wise, and we are going forward. So there is 2 benefits out of Chug Biodigester. What our plant does is treats your waste at the source and also converts the waste into energy. What we do is we pipe it back to the kitchen, and thereby there is a reduction in the usage of LPG. So instead of throwing your waste outside and paying for the disposal, you rather convert your waste into energy and lower your operation costs in terms of LPG savings. And plus, this plant also gives you bioslurry, which is very rich in nutrients, and it is very good for plant growth.
Bharat, what kind of savings does installing Chug accrue to your clients? And can this be used for apartments also?
See, for apartment complex, yes, it is. So if there is a 50 dwellings apartment complex, there is a food waste issue, and they automatically qualify as bulk waste generators. See, every apartment complex, there are facility management team working there. So they make their own coffee, tea, they make their snacks. And we can always pipe this gas, which is generated out of Chug, to the staffs who are working, and they can make their own coffee and tea. In fact, we have done an installation for one of the apartment complexes in Chennai. So it is definitely useful for apartment complexes. Point number 2 is today as such. So every commercial establishments are paying to clear the waste, which ranges up from 5,000 to 15,000 per month, I'm saying. So if you put an in-situ treatment, there is a savings in terms of disposal costs, which you will do away with. So one of our installations in Greater Chennai Corporation is a canteen, where we installed a plant back in 2021. It's been successfully running for 3 years now. This canteen, they are actually crushing all the waste and putting it to the digester and generating gas. Every month, they are actually saving around 100 kgs of LPG equivalent gas. That means 5 cylinders they are saving every month. That is close to 10,000 to 12,000 rupees they are saving. So there is a saving in terms of biogas as well. And sometimes they also sell the bioslurry.
Like Systema and Chug, many Indian conglomerates have forayed into the biogas space. But their plants will predominantly fire their own refineries and will retail biogas through their petrol pumps. In fact, in addition to the Satat scheme, the government's Gobardhan scheme is adding to the growth of biogas. This budget, government announced 500 new plants with a total investment of 10,000 crore rupees under the Gobardhan scheme. Of the 500, 200 will be compressed biogas plants. Gaurav Kedia, chairman of Indian Biogas Association, says there are better days ahead for biogas in India.
the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has been instrumental in its efforts to promote biogas, not only commercially, but across scales, in fact, which has a wider social impact or benefits, I would say. More particularly for commercial compressed biogas plants, presently a capex subsidy of around 4 crore is being provided for 4.8 tons per day of CBG. This roughly covers around 15 to 25% of upfront capital cost. Then there are schemes like Satat. That's another flagship program from the Government of India, from Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas to be exact, which commenced with the assurance of CBG offtake by the oil marketing companies. And this has undergone several amendments to benchmark CBG prices to CNG. So in other words, I would say now CPG price or compressed biogas price is indexed to the market price of CNG. Apart from this, I would also emphasize on the fact that we also have now the CBG CGD synchronization scheme from Gas Authority of India Limited, that is GAIL, to streamline the insertion of CBG into the city gas grid. I would also like to mention about the biofertilizer part, because in biogas plant, you also get the biofertilizer. Recently, only the MDA, that is Market Development Assistance, of 1.5 rupees per kg of manure is announced from the Department of Fertilizer side, which is a very welcoming step. And apart from this, the carbon market is also now booming. So in fact, when you sum this all, the biogas industry in general looks quite lucrative.
Why do you think biogas is picking up now?
So let's use the 3 buckets: technical bucket, financial bucket, and social bucket. The technology is now getting matured. It's almost there so that people can now opt for the large-scale biogas plant. Number 2, from financial perspective, we are getting a lot of impetus, or this push is there from the government side, and market is ready to pull it. When I say market, I'm talking about the gas market as well as the fertilizer market. And apart from this, I would also say that because of the corona impact, people are very much health conscious as well. So when you talk about organic food, then you need organic fertilizer as well. Biogas plants are one of the very important way to really look for it as far as the production of organic fertilizer in bulk is concerned. So the overall scenario makes it very lucrative right now. That's why a lot of talk is going on, not only from impact perspective, but also from the business perspective.
All right. Gaurav, what would be biogas share in India's energy mix right now, and where do you see it going forward?
That's a very good question, to be very honest. Yeah. So considering the current installation base of CBG plants under the Satat initiative, I would say much less than 1% as such when you really talk about or when you compare with the overall energy basket. However, let's put a 7 years of timeline in perspective. And if you consider 7% of timeline in perspective, you can almost be sure about 5% in next 7 years.
So if it goes up to 5%, which is a good, impressive number in the next couple of years, what kind of savings would that result for India in terms of the import of crude oil bill?
When you talk about, decrease in import of crude bill, decrease in import of chemical fertilizer, if we increase the compressed biogas share, then we can reduce the annual import bill by $25 billion by the end of 2030. That is one of the internal assessment we did around a couple of months ago.
Biogas has the potential to become one more prominent alternative fuel in India's energy stack. For a country that has committed to achieving net zero by 2070 and reduce its energy bill, the focus on biogas seems to be well-timed. But the execution is key here. For instance, nearly 50 lakh biogas plants have been built in rural areas over the past decades, but 90% of them are non-functional due to bad planning or failed management. It's a pity that this is happening at a time when India produces 500 million metric tons of agricultural waste every year but burns it, leading to air pollution. We are all too familiar with the annual stubble burning in Punjab and Haryana. Incidentally, India also has the highest livestock population in the world. That means an abundance of animal waste which can be fed into the biogas plants. And it's not that we don't have success stories. The Indore Municipal Corporation is able to generate biogas through effective urban waste management and is planning to inject the same through the city gas grid to fire kitchens and cars. But this is something that most municipal corporations in the country have failed to emulate. It's probably time to strictly enforce the provisions of the Solid Waste Management Rules 2016 across the country. And at a personal level, we can be the change that we want to see. That is segregating waste and exploring biogas plants in our housing societies and neighborhoods. That's it for today from me, Kalpana Pathak. A big thanks to Piyush, Gaurav and Bharat for their insights, and a special thanks to my colleagues Vinay Joshi and Rajas Naik, who travelled to Kathraj to speak to the dairy farmers. This episode was brought to you by sound editor Rajas Naik and show producer Vinay Joshi. Executive producers Anupriya Nair, Anirban Chaudhary and Arijit Barman. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, do share it on your social media networks. Brand new episodes of The Morning Brief drop every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. You can catch it on Amazon Prime Music, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, and of course ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Have a great day ahead.